Welcome to episode number 48 of Hoop Talk Fanatics. I am here with my co-host Chris Korn, and we have a special guest, our good friend John Berardi, to recap Purdue's surprising loss against Philly Dickinson, and it should be a fun time.
It's, it'll be a good. We'll have some good conversation, I'm sure. But John will have some fun.
Oh yes.
So, what were your initial thoughts on the Purdue game, Chris?
I watched the whole thing, and just the way from the get go how fast FDU played. Like they really pushed the tempo on both sides of the ball. Like they were just moving on the court a lot faster than Purdue was, which was going to be expected when they're that much smaller. But like it really rattled Purdue, and we also saw it in their game against FAU. If you guys watched any of that or anybody that did, they did a similar thing, and they had a chance to win that game too by playing the same way basically, and they just Purdue never was able to adjust to that really that much because Edie had a really good game, but even in the second half, FDU was able to do a little bit more to take it away, and like Purdue still has like the other guys on the team have struggled a little bit this season consistently, but like they've been able to get Edie a little bit going usually in some of those times when they've had these issues, but like they didn't let Edie do anything in the second half. Like they would just double send the third guy if they needed to, and no one else would step up. I felt like it was tough to see because like these are still like we've talked about on this podcast, even Alex, a few times that the freshman guards are always worrisome, but it was more than that even. Like because those guys made some plays, but it's just like there was no consistency for those guys, and they Painter and the offense just could never adjust to the energy level that FDU brought for the whole 40 minutes. FDU really brought it, I thought.
So, what were your thoughts on it?
Oh, definitely going off that same thing to that, especially that freshman class, how they played throughout that one. Definitely enjoyed seeing Fletcher Lawyer out there. Fletcher Lawyer looks like he was like one of the best, could be like an All-American or something. When he shoots the ball during that game, it reminds you of seeing Sasha Stefanovic.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, definitely they struggled so much with their shots, especially with eating and stuff. When you're just want to see him shoot more, but they're definitely going to lose some key pieces though for during the off season entering next season. But yeah, he has to do a better job coaching.
Definitely, yeah. Like you said, ED shots. He took 11. He only took 11 shots. Like he got fouled. I don't know how many 10 free throw these shots. So like he was the ball a lot more, but like they constantly were able to they got some good looks off his kick after like we talked about. They didn't hit a ton. Lawyer hit a few, but you did mention like for next season whatnot. I do like the young backcourt they have. It's going to be exciting to see how they progress. If hopefully they stay put the next couple years. You never know in college basketball now, but those two, like I like Lawyer and Smith moving forward. Smith didn't have the best game, but I think they still have some good young pieces to move forward with. And I mean, Edie could be back next year. I don't personally know either way, but I would guess he is back. But it's so hard to tell because he's not going to have a better season than he did this year. So who knows what? There's a lot of decisions to be made about Purdue, but they had a fantastic season. I remember in the preseason, me and Alex, all three of us, I think we were texting about it, how we thought Purdue's season could go, and we thought I didn't think they would barely be a tournament team, honestly, and I think Alex felt the same way. But you were pretty a little bit. I mean, you didn't think they'd be this good of a regular season, but you were confident. And just definitely, it sucks losing to a 16 seed, losing early in the tournament. I mean, we'll talk about my Jayhawks here in a little bit as well, but
And his
one bad game doesn't it sucks because the NCAA tournament. This game's gonna be talked about for a long time, and Purdue fans are gonna have to deal with it, and it's gonna get annoying. Probably already has, but just one bad loss in the NCAA tournament doesn't take away from how they were a really good team for most of the season, and
Yeah.
it sucks it ends like this, but this is the NCAA tournament, and
it's marching.
every program will go through a brutal loss at some point. Some are more fortunate, me and Alex have seen some titles recently, but these losses suck because people make these rash judgments about how good Purdue actually was. Like I've been down on them a little bit, but they were one of the best teams in the country. On how you feel, and it's just this game. This game did show a lot of their weaknesses, but they can move forward from this and be a dominant team again next season.
Yeah, and also going off that one too, who's been impressing? I know this wasn't on today's topic, but definitely Princeton, especially with their run that they had through that women's team too, but their men's team, not even you thinking that they were struggling. They started season 0-2, including the big loss against Navy. I think going into Ivy League tournament, you think they were going to struggle with that senior class, but that run they're having right now too, that's a Cinderella story, right?
That's a crazy one because everyone's talking about FDU a little bit, but like Princeton's they've played great basketball. They dominated Missouri. I haven't got a chance personally. I'm unfortunate. I haven't got a chance to really watch either of their games because I've been busy during those two sessions. But just the way we did get to watch a little bit of the Arizona game at the end, but because they were down, it was at least double digits.
Yeah,
Good chunk into that second half, and they just battled and got it done. And I felt like I was just following the score of Missouri, but it seemed like they were in control basically the whole game of that one. It's just super impressive how they've done it. And Creighton's going to be a fun game for them. They got a chance.
Yeah, but knowing how Princeton is too with their key pieces, their senior leader, Manalaka, the Mush. There's a story about why they call him that. Tosan Wilmont and Keyshawn, they're two centers. Those two are the ones that are leading the charge of that team. I don't know if you saw it in the Missouri game. Keyshawn, 3 dunks in the game. Every single time that he had ball by the paint, goes in for a 2-handed dunk. If they can put that mentality with Manalako running the point for that team, they can pull off the upset right now, predicting it. And including for the women's team. Everyone was talking about that. You start the season 0-2 in the Ivy League conference, and you're ranked in the top 25 early in the season too. You start 0-2 in the conference, and then look where you go. You go into UPenn, win the co-share of the Ivy League title. Then you go to the Ivy League tournament on a 13-game winning streak, and then where they were now. You end the season on a 16-game winning streak. That's a first for it, especially that run that they had.
That's impressive stuff.
That's a hell of a run for them, including one of their best. They're losing 3 of their best players. You're losing Julia Cunningham, Ellie Mitchell, and Grace Stone. Losing those 3, they're going to have a hard time. I was telling him this earlier. How are you going to rebuild that team around 3 of your best players and one of them was your star center? So basically, between Purdue and Princeton, they're going to have a hard time rebuilding that team. Those 2
Definitely.
teams.
Losing big pieces is always tough. I mean, I didn't get to watch much, but it seemed like they put up a decent fight against Utah at least.
Yeah, and including everyone was talking about it. They said that story about was the NC State game. You're down 8 with 2 minutes left to go, and they somehow get lucky with that clutch 3 and then the 3 in a corner to send them to the round 32. No one was expecting Princeton to go this far with that heck of the run they have. This coach, 3rd year with the team, played at UConn and was the head coach at Tufts. And she's led this team into the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row.
That's awesome. That's big for the whole – because Ivy League definitely gets some recognition naturally a little bit. But Princeton, men and women's, being able to do this the same year is huge for that university. And they'll be able to build on this moving forward, which will help them a lot, both the men's and women's teams.
What are your thoughts on having to go up against Nemhard and Kalkbrenner?
That'll be an interesting matchup. You guys know more about Princeton. You're talking about their bigs. Kalkbrenner is he's a beast. He's a difference maker for that team. He's one of the best big men in the country. He's so skilled and just the team around him is so good too. That's the guard play, the wings. They can really score the basketball, and they've gotten better defensively. So having all those guys around him. You mentioned Nimrod, Kaluma's been pretty good. I'm blanking on some of the other names, but the
Trey,
whole
Trey Alexander.
Trey Alexander. That's
Yeah.
who was coming in my head. Yeah, he's been great. They've all stepped up. I felt like, and they were really good against Baylor. So it's going to be a different type of challenge for Princeton, but I feel like they've shown they can play. Their style can kind of give a lot of different teams fits. So they'll make it tough on Creighton for sure. Just the way Creighton's scoring the ball right now, it's because Arizona was like a very difficult matchup with a better team than Creighton, but schematically, I think Princeton had a little bit more they could exploit and like kind of control the game a little bit. And they kept it within striking distance into the second half, and then they were able to make that run. They got a lot of stops in a row to really get back in that game and pull it out. So this Creighton's going to, I think, speed the game up a little bit more on them. How much can Princeton really control that will be interesting.
Well, and also I was telling him this between what happened in that Arizona game compared to last night's game. Princeton somehow, when they were playing, 3 of the best players from the other teams all went down with injuries. And in the Utah game, the first round, they put up 90 against Utah State. So you were able to hold Utah and their best player to under like 70 points. They'd stayed in the 65 range. So you held them down from 90 down.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So John, do you have anything else to add about Purdue?
Not really. Just excited for the late start time on Friday. If they can upset Creighton, they can run away with this easily.
I would love to see them keep going.
Yeah. That's all I had. Can't
Okay.
wait. If they win, boy, I'm gonna have a drink for that one.
So maybe if they can get back in the Final Four, I have to have John back on again.
Oh yes. Or if they beat Creighton right now, by prediction, beating Creighton, going to the Elite Eight, then I'll be back on. I'm calling this now. If they beat Creighton,
back talking about,
I'll be back on.
Creighton will be super tough. I don't want to have to think about them against Alabama though. We'll see. Just keep playing basketball and see what happens. NCAA tournament's a crazy time.
Yeah, it should be a very entertaining game in Kentucky on Friday. So let's continue on the other games. The upset in the Midwest region, Pittsburgh over Iowa State. What were your thoughts on that one?
That was I don't know if you were able to watch, that was such an ugly offensive performance from Iowa State. Just terrible. They got down 20 pretty quick. Oh, not quickly. Their defense was good, but they couldn't score for like 15 minutes. It felt like to start the game. They started to hit a couple shots, but they never, because they strung together a lot of stops, got it back to single digits, but they were never able to get consecutive baskets like consistently. Like they shot like, I think they ended 21% from the field. I have to double check that, but it was all time bad. Just the offense was terrible. Just an awful way to end the season. But you have to give Pitt a lot of credit. They played well, and they didn't shoot the ball great either, but they got off to a great start, and they were able to really kind of manage the game just enough to give themselves a little bit of breathing room and make that upset win.
Mm-hmm. I felt like Jamil Borden and Nelly Cummings for Pitt really handled the team chemistry well throughout their run, and I feel like Pitt could be as dangerous as a team as they were this year, next year with what they have. What do you think about the transition from what happened with them this year to next season.
No, I definitely I would need to look through that roster full on to make sure I know who's coming back. But I think both guys you mentioned are back next year. I don't know if you would take a look at what their classing is, because I think Henson might be gone. It's so
Mhm.
hard to know with the COVID year, transfer portal stuff. It's so hard to keep track of everyone, how much eligibility they have left.
Yeah.
But either way, this was a great season for Pitt. They kind of faded a tiny bit at the end of the season, and I put them on the bubble, but they got to the first four. They got that win, and then they beat Iowa State, and just that really elevated them. And I think that's big for the program because Jeff Capel, he's come in and done a really good job of getting in the NCAA tournament, getting that win against Iowa, or in the first four and against Iowa State. I think will really help them kind of build this momentum moving forward because Pitt's a traditionally great basketball program. They've been down most of the past decade, honestly. Or they've still been okay, but not at like top standards that we've seen Pittsburgh and old Big East and such. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can build on this and see what
Mhm.
kind of roster they can put together for next season.
What do you think about Federico for Pitt?
And is he? So I'm terrible with the names. He was a
He's a sophomore.
sophomore.
Yeah.
Sorry, one. Okay, he is a big guy. That's what I thought. So he played. He definitely did some good things for them. Sophomore, you said. So yeah, definitely. I don't think he played much to end the season though. Yeah, his role kind of went down. I don't know the logistics behind that.
Mhm.
They opted for. I don't know if I think they're twins. Diaz Graham. I'm pretty. They looked identical to me. I think they're definitely twins. So those, I think they put more of those two at the big minutes. And I don't know. I don't know the exact dynamic with Pitt
Mhm.
basketball to why that happened. I don't know if he had some injuries lingering. He still played a few minutes. It looks like here it says. So I'm not exactly sure what happened with that, but I think he's been a good player for them. I think consistently. I feel like he had a decent season. So it'll be interesting
Yeah.
to see how he can fit in. Seems like a good rotation piece at least, which will help them
Mhm.
move forward. Having guys bringing back a guy like that, but at the end of the day, I'm not entirely familiar with how that season ended for him. Looks like he played
Mhm.
just 1 minute against Xavier, so we'll see how that turns out for him and the Pittsburgh team.
I felt like Iowa State was a terrific team as well. In the Big 12. I really liked how Gabe Kalshire played for Iowa State.
He's been big for them. They had a bad past 2 months. They ended the season really bad, but they had a good Big 12 tournament showing. I was super impressed with how they did against Baylor, and then they fought against Kansas as well.
Mhm.
I'll show the big part of that. He had a couple 20-point scoring games, and I don't think he had a ton against Pittsburgh, but I think he had a few shots, and that was about all they had. They didn't have much
Yeah.
outside of him, and just super disappointing for them. Because they started the season great. They're one of the better top couple seeds, and they had a chance to really do something, but 41
Mhm.
points for the team. Alshire had 12, 4 for 14, though, in the season shooting. Just no one could hit shots consistently. He was 1 for 8 and 3.
Mhm.
It's a tough ending to the season for them. It kind of ended as a roller coaster up and down with some off the court issues as well for the team, and just tough to go out like that as a group.
I'm just looking at their roster now. They have Robert Jones is a senior, so he's not going to be with them. They have another one from Slovenia. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but Kunk.
God,
Yeah,
I know I
yeah,
don't know how to pronounce his name either, but he's number 5, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah,
And they have Trey King, who is their senior forward.
King was a nice piece for them. So like they'll lose a
Yeah.
few guys, but they have some good freshmen coming in, and if they can retain these guys with eligibility, they'll have a really good team next year and definitely be back in the NCAA tournament.
Hmm. I know we covered the East region, Purdue, FDU. So now we will be covering yesterday's games. Number 9 seed Florida Atlantic took down another number 8 seed Memphis 66-65. That was a really interesting game. What were your thoughts on that one?
That game was fantastic. It was such a good basketball game. Memphis started a little bit slow, but it seemed like they were starting to take control. DeAndre Williams getting 4 fouls early in the second half really impacted Memphis and how they were able to do things. And when he came back in, they started to get a lot better. But just the ending was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis, they had the ball up 1, the turnover, and then the timeout controversy didn't work out. They didn't get to stop in the final seconds, and they ended up losing by a point. And just it was a classic. It was an unreal basketball game. Maybe the best game we saw this week.
Yeah.
Just the level of play down the stretch, some big time plays on both ends of the floor, and just the energy level is fantastic from 2 really good basketball teams.
What were your thoughts on how the coach handled their season?
For Memphis,
for Memphis.
Penny, I've been critical of him. I think he did a good job this season. They definitely had some talent, but Kendrick Davis and DeAndre Williams are as good of a duo as you'll see. There's not many better duos in the country, and I think they played well. I mean, they beat Houston pretty bad, or not pretty bad, but they got a good win in the AAC championship game against Houston this last week. But it is disappointing to lose in the first round. Florida Atlantic's a really good team, but I think Memphis had the more talented team. They had some good role players as well, but they just weren't able to do enough down the stretch. Rebound, a couple loose balls here and there. Just a couple things didn't go their way, and that ended up costing them. Overall, I think it was a really good season, and I think Penny continues to go in the right direction, and they're building something really good in Memphis. They've been a good team all 5 years. They haven't made it into a tournament every year, but they've been a really good basketball team every year he's been there, and they continue to get better, I would say. Like, not dramatically, but they continue to improve different things about them each and every season. Now losing Davis and Williams, how do they replace these two moving forward? Because these guys, Davis was so big for them this season. William has been huge the past couple he's played there. So how can they really put this all together? It's going to be interesting and kind of build on this. Because losing a game like this is tough, and then you lose most of the players who are going to be here for the team. Or you put this in with recruits, transfers. It'll be interesting to see how they can really shape your roster up.
The next game in the Sweet 16, which we will be covering later in the episode, should be a very interesting game. Our next game to cover will be the South region. Number 6 seed upset number 3 seed Baylor, 85-76. Ryan Nemhard had 30 points with 2 rebounds, 2 assists, which was
30?
Yeah.
Dang, I really had 30. Oh my God. Dang. I knew he was big, but dang.
Trey Alexander had 17 points with 8 rebounds and 5 assists.
Alexander was fantastic last night.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, the 5 stars were all really good in different ways.
And on the Baylor side, LJ Cryo had 30 points as well.
LJ was fantastic. I felt like we talked about Nimrod at 30 for Creighton, but they had a few other guys who really contributed in a big way as well. And I don't think Baylor had that outside of Cryo. Keontae George with 1 for 10. Flagler did a little bit, and Jalen Bridges had some moments, but consistently on both ends of the floor, they really didn't have anything consistently, and they couldn't make enough shots. They weren't terrible offensively, but outside Cryo, they only had 1 made 3-pointer from anybody else, like 1 for 12 or something besides him. They're just really not – that's been a theme for them this season. They have different guys step up on a nightly basis, like Cryo had 30 tonight or last night. In the Big 12 tournament, Jalen Bridges had 30, and they still lose both those games because consistently around those, they don't all play at a high level on a consistent basis. Who knows why that's the case? Definitely an up and down season for them, but at their best is with a talented group. So it's disappointing to see them lose, but it's still a very good Creighton team, so they have nothing to be ashamed of. And Creighton played great, and they have a chance to make a deep run and keep advancing in the tournament.
And one last game that stuck out to me was the Michigan State game against Marquette. I know that Tyson Walker was a beast in that game. He had 23 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And I feel like moving ahead, they're going to be a really tough team in the Sweet 16. Just the way they play offensively really puts them in perspective of how well they are well coached. And I think Tom Izzo has a really solid team. And people are going to be surprised of how deep they can make it. And just now, I feel like they could be a Final Four team. I just think that having Tyson Walker with Joey Hauser and AJ Haggard are really capable of winning games. And what do you think about how they've been performing?
I mean, you basically going off what you said, those 3 guys have been fantastic. They've got some decent play from some other guys, but I think those are the 3 notable guys, especially on the offensive end. They have some really good role players as well. Malik Hall is one. I keep blanking on the big guys. He's been great as well. Sissoko, he had 8 and 10, almost double. But you mentioned it. Hogard was making plays. Hauser, those both guys were both in double figures as well. Hauser also had 10 rebounds, so double for him. Those guys just all chip in different ways. But it comes down to Tyson Walker for them. He's as clutch of a guard as there is in college basketball. He makes so many big plays down the stretch. He hit countless big buckets for Michigan State late in this game. He keeps himself a little bit of distance from Marquette, and just fantastic performance from Walker. And I agree. If I had to pick right now, I'd say they are the team to get to the Final Four from that. I think I think they're in a great spot to keep winning some games.
So there was one more game that I wanted to speak on, which was the Kentucky-Kansas State game. I know that you follow Kansas State closely as Kansas, and that was a heck of a game for Kansas State. They really played well, and Noel for Kansas State really performed at a rate where they seem to be going in the right direction. He had 27 points with 9 assists, which is a really great number of stats, especially playing against John Calipari's Kentucky team. Kentucky didn't look as well as what they expected to be entering that game. And I just felt like Kansas State just completely blew open the window and got the victory.
Yeah, you said Marquise Noel. Talk about him. He was fantastic. There's not enough good things we could say about him. His play. He's made so many big plays down the stretch. I felt like he played smarter offensively than he normally does. A lot of times, turnover prone has been an issue for him at times, and I think he was great defensively as well. Great, like big shots, big plays for his teammates. He did it all, and up and down season a little bit for him down the stretch, but fantastic, absolutely fantastic game. One of the best games I've seen him play. Probably maybe the best game he's had this season. I feel like it was just an unreal performance, and in the biggest moments, he was fantastic. Talk about the big shots he hit. It was much more than just shot making for him. Just the way he controlled that game on both ends of the floor, especially offensively. They were pushing the pace. He was getting his teammates good looks, and they capitalized just enough on him. But then you talked about it. From Kentucky's standpoint, everyone was hyping them up to end the season, but even when their play and like they got better as the season ended, they still had some bad losses. They lost to Vanderbilt twice. They lost, I think, another game or two late in the season as well. And just when they were really good, like when they put it together, they've been fantastic, but they haven't done that enough. And I think people overhyped them as a result of that. We talked about Toshibwe, he was dominant. Like K-State didn't have much of an answer for him, 25-18. Cakes and Wallace was fantastic as well. But outside of those two, Livingston did a little bit, but they didn't have much. Antonio Reeves was 1 for 15. Like that can't happen from one of your best scorers. Jacob Toppin,
Yeah.
2 points, 1 for 7. Like two starters combined 2 for 22. You're not going to win many basketball games. And just the production outside of the top couple guys was non-existent, and you're not going to advance the NCAA tournament playing like that. No matter how good those two are, you need at least a little bit from the other guys. Like we talked about it, K-State struggled to shoot the ball, and Noel was fantastic, but they got just enough from their other guys. Keontae Johnson made some big plays. Naquan Tomlin, Desi Sills made some big-time plays back in the basket in transition. He was really big. He helped speed this game up. Every time he was going straight to the rim, and he hit with 6 or 7 from the free throw line. And those moments helped them. They fell behind a little bit, but they played hard and they played fast when they had a chance to. And I think that really helped them out. And like big guys, like looking at the stat sheet, not a ton from those guys, but David Nagesson, Masood hit that big three, like 2 minutes left. I don't remember the exact score situation, but it was a massive three. The role players, they've been up and down this season, but they all made a couple. Like you can look back and like if you rewatch that game, all of K-State's guys made a couple massive plays, and just I don't think Kentucky's guys really had that. Like if you think about that game for Kentucky, there's like Mason Wallace was good, Tshiebwe was a beast, but who else like really did anything? And I think for K-State, everyone's talked about Noel. They'll talk about Keontae Johnson, but like everyone else had a couple big time plays that really impacted the game. And Kentucky's role players just didn't do that. And I think that was the difference.
So moving on to Sweet 16, which will kick off on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time from the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. And this is the most intriguing game of the day, I would to start off the day, I would say. Besides the Gonzaga UCLA game later that night, I think that Tyson Walker and Marcus Noel matchup is going to be absolutely unbelievable. And I'm really curious to see how Marquise matches up against a pretty good Michigan State defense, and how the perimeter plays out. And what do you think about this matchup?
It's super interesting to me. What probably my favorite game of the week. They have some similarities in their play team wise and like Noel versus Walker. But they do things so differently. I think Noel he'll try to speed the game up a little bit more. Like we've seen Tyson Walker get downhill, make some big plays in transition, but I think he's more like in the half. He likes being in the half court offense a little bit more, and I think K-State struggles in that a little bit. But I hope if it's a close game down the stretch, this game very likely comes down to which of these two guards can make the plays down the stretch to help their team win. Because we saw it in Marquette and Kentucky. Both of these guards made multiple big plays, like 3 or 4 down the stretch, and the other teams had no answer for them. So it's just they've been 2 of the most clutch players in the country all season, and it's going to be a fantastic matchup. Maybe 2 of the best guards left in the tournament, so it's going to be exciting to see how these two match up. And the rest of their teams, I think Michigan. I talked about K-State's role players against Kentucky. Michigan State's role players were fantastic as well. I'm just not familiar with them, but Sissoko, we talked about Hauser. Role player is not a bad term, but it's just I'm taking like role player and then everyone else, and like everyone else contributes for both these teams, and a lot of fun matchups in this game. How will Michigan State defend Keontae Johnson? Does he have a little bit more advantage in a game like this compared to Kentucky when it's Allen Tshiebwe or some of the other big athletic forwards Kentucky have? It's going to be tough for them to get points, but really have a matchup for how will Michigan State kind of guard him as well? Because everyone's going to talk about Noel, but Keontae Johnson is arguably better player is not the right word, but he's going to be just as important moving forward for Kansas State to win some games.
there's 3 other games Thursday night. The next game, which will start at 7:15 p.m. from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Number 8 seed Arkansas meets with number 4 seed UConn. I really think that UConn will take advantage of this game and just completely dominate how they've been doing, and they got a big time star in Sonogo, and I think he's going to run the whole offense on Thursday night against an interesting Arkansas team, and I just think that it's not going to be as close as people think it might be with all of these upsets happening. I think UConn is the better team, in my opinion, and I'm really interested to see how Arkansas gets their how they perform against a sour team like UConn. Even though after seeing them knock off number 1 Kansas by 1 point, and dropping 72 points against them, which I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas comes through and surprises UConn with a win.
I agree, though. I think UConn is the clear better team. When you watched, I don't know how much of you watched, but Kansas against Arkansas, the talent level it wasn't like Kansas didn't have the better athletes. I felt like Arkansas had the advantage in that area. They were quicker. A lot of the guys were stronger. And you talked about Sonogo. I don't think Arkansas had the guy that Makai Mitchell might be his name for Arkansas. If I'm wrong. The big guy number 15. I think that's his name. I may be way off, but he's really good. So I'm not discrediting any of like their post play. They were fantastic against Kansas as well. They did just enough to hang around that game, and it felt like they had the athleticism. Devo Davis took advantage of every pick and roll like opportunity. They were really smart in the second half, and like they took advantage of some mismatches, and KU didn't adjust. So credit to them. But I think you talked about Sonogo. I think UConn has the athletes to really match Arkansas on the perimeter as well. Nick Smith didn't really play against Kansas that much, and I don't think he's a factor moving forward for Arkansas. Of much of a factor. We'll see. Like if there's foul trouble, he played a little bit and made some plays, but Ricky Council was great, and we got Jordan Hawkins for Connecticut and some other really good players for them. But I think it does come down to Sonogo. He's arguably the most dominant player left in the NCAA tournament. Brandon Miller's fantastic, but just from a dominant standpoint and hard to game plan for, I think Sonogo may be that guy that you just don't want to face. And I think UConn wins by about 10 or so. I think they're going to control this game. Arkansas does have the dudes. They're going to make it tough on them defensively. I think they can give UConn some issues, but I think Sonogo is going to have 20 to 25 points and really be the man to lead UConn to the next round.
So that's 2 games out of 4 on Thursday. Our next matchup, which will be a 9 p.m. Eastern tip off between Tennessee and Florida Atlantic. This game will be at the Mecca in New York. And this game will be a very interesting matchup. I'm really interested to see how FIU does against a really talented Tennessee team. And I just think that FIU has the materials of making it a tight game, possibly, but I just think that Tennessee just completely devours everything besides having the record.
I think I agree with that. I think Tennessee is going to be so physical. it's the way I only got to watch parts of it, but the way they kind of controlled Duke against Duke, and just
Mhm.
Duke never really got anything going offensively. It turned into an ugly game, and Florida Atlantic can play in some of those, but Florida Atlantic will try to speed it up a little bit, I think, and really get out and make Tennessee. But Tennessee has a dude who can really handle that, I think. So I'm expecting Tennessee to win because Florida Atlantic wasn't great against FDU. FDU did
Mhm.
some of the same things they did against Purdue and really pushed them. So it's like, no, not a big thing. Like it's all about just win. Here's how it looks, just win and keep playing another day. So I mean, they'll have a great chance in this game, but I think you kind of talked. I think Tennessee will really impose their will, and I think they'll win this game.
So there's one more game left, Thursday evening, which is Gonzaga UCLA. This game will be an amazing matchup to end the night at Las Vegas, 9:45 p.m. tip-off Eastern time. And I think it's going to come down to how well Drew Timmy plays and how well UCLA matches up and Jamie Jaquiz Jr. And I think those two are going to be a really interesting matchups that night in that game. And I do see Gonzaga pulling off the win, but I wouldn't be surprised how UCLA has been performing and moving on to the Elite Eight next week.
I agree. I think UCLA has been really good since they lost Jalen Clark, but they have multiple injuries now.
Mhm.
I always forget the big guy's name, but Bona might be his name, something like that. He's been hurt. He's been playing, and then Singleton got hurt against Western. I saw. I still don't know the severity of that. So if you've seen anything,
Mhm.
you can chime in. But I don't know. I don't think it was
How about
great.
how about Amari Bailey?
He's been really good for them. They're going to need consistency out of him in that
Yeah,
game for sure. But I think
and
Tiger
he's
Campbell has the big match at point guard spot though. That'll be big for UCLA.
yeah, Bailey is only a freshman.
Yeah, they're gonna
So
because Gonzaga's wings have been really good. Julian
yeah.
Stratha is fantastic. They're gonna need someone to match him. And I don't know how I didn't get to watch UCLA Northwestern, so I don't know how they really like schematically like defended Northwestern's
Mhm.
wing because with Northwestern have players. So I don't know exactly how to do that because without Jalen, like if you had Jalen Clark, he's your guy, but they've had to adjust since then. But they've won some games, and I'm interested to see how they match up against Gonzaga. But they also like talk about the perimeter losses to UCLA, but
Mhm.
they still have to defend Root Hemming inside. And we saw TCU has a lot of dudes on the perimeter, and they
Mhm.
did pretty good in that aspect. But they did not have a consistent answer for Drew Timmy, and I think that was the difference last night in that game for
Mhm.
sure.
So that concludes Thursday's matchups of the Sweet 16, the first part of the Sweet 16. The second part of the Sweet 16 gets underway Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TBS between number 5 ranked San Diego State and number 1 ranked Alabama. Um, I'm I'm really thinking that Alabama is going to take this game and it's not going to be close at all. I just think that Brendan Miller is going to dominate from start to finish. And I don't see San Diego State having the capability of making it close.
I think I agree. San Diego State's a fantastic team. The way they defend, it can really slow this game down. But I think Alabama has too much offensively. I think they could they could keep it. The spread 7.5. They could cover maybe like lose by 6 or 7 if things go right. But it's just I don't think they have quite enough offense. And speed because Alabama will push it a little bit. And as much as San
Mhm.
Diego State tries to control it, they won't be successful for 40 minutes, I don't think. And I think they lose by about 10 if I had to guess.
Mhm.
But I would be shocked if San Diego State won, but they do have the defense, I think, can make it very tough on Alabama. And I think
Yeah.
Bradley's been good, and I think they have the guys who make shots enough to keep
Mhm.
in this ball game. I think we both would agree it would be shocking if Alabama won.
Yeah, it should be interesting on the San Diego State side of things, how they match up against a really talented, solid Alabama squad.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting matchup that they're gonna have to figure out. They have really good defenders, but I don't think there's any team in the country with the personnel to really
Mhm.
defend a Brandon Miller, and Javon Quiverly's been fantastic as well. And this is a
Yeah.
healthy group.
Yep. So our next game is kicking off at 7:15 Eastern time, on CBS, between Miami and Houston. This game could go either way. I feel like just the way Miami performed last night against Indiana, which was a really great performance. Isaiah Wong just completely blasted off of Indiana's defense, and I just feel like if they play the same type of uh, performance that they did yesterday, I feel like this game could be in Miami's hands. But um, I wouldn't argue of Miami pulling off the win, but Houston, just watching Houston's run in the recent games in the tournament, I just don't feel confident of what I've been seeing. And I just feel like Miami might have the edge of beating Houston, but I'm not sure of how well Houston is going to be ready and get the win.
I agree. This is a game that could go either way for me. Probably the toughest for me to pick out of all these games being played. Honestly, just the spread 6.5 right now. I think Miami will play it closer than 7 points for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But Miami's. I love their guard play. They're athletic. They get up and down the floor offensively. They can get after you defensively. It's just it'll be interesting to see how these two styles play. Houston's going to try to limit possessions, and I
Mm-hmm.
think can play slower pace, but I think they're going to try to speed Houston up a little bit at least. And I mean Isaiah Wong, Nigel Pack, um, they have so many guys that can score the basketball, and Houston does as well. But I think Miami is a better offensive team, and if you made me pick right now, I would pick Miami to win this game.
Yeah, I would definitely pick Miami. Knowing that Houston has been off balance of how they've been performing, and it should be a fun one. But we got two more
One more
games.
thing to go. Sorry
Okay.
about that, but one more thing with Houston, it will be interesting to see how Marcus Sasser
Mhm.
see if because he's been playing, but hasn't been quite 100%. He made some big plays against Auburn to really help them
Mhm.
close out that game, but can he be closer to 100%? You're never going to be 100% with dealing with those groin injuries, but can he be a little bit more impactful? Because I know he'd be taken out of that first game, and
Mhm.
I don't know exactly how the second game went for him, but I know he played well. But if he's going to have to be as close to 100% as he can for them to
Mhm.
make the Final Four. Because like Miami and then whoever they would play next would be insanely tough. But they're going to need him. They're going to need him as healthy as possible this weekend, and that'll
Yeah.
be a fantastic storyline to watch and see how he progresses.
So to cap off the night, we have two interesting games in the South region. From Louisville, Princeton, who's like number 15, will play number 6 ranked Creighton. So in this matchup, I really like how Princeton has been performing the past couple of games, and I just feel like Creighton is kind of the team where they've just been so hot recently that I'm not sure how Princeton can overcome this win. And I mean, I know Princeton knocked off Missouri, and I forget who else they knocked off.
They got Arizona first round.
Yeah, Arizona. But I just think that Creighton has all the tools to go to reach the Final Four. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Princeton makes their game interesting, and I'm just really not confident of how Princeton can defend Rich Nemhard, Kalkbrenner in the post. Has been unbelievable, and I really do think Creighton has at least a smaller advantage, and I'm not sure about how Princeton will play, knowing that they knocked off two big time teams in the tournament. But I mean, as much as I want Princeton to win this game, I'm not overly confident of how they will match up against this Creighton team.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. We kind of talked about when John was on too, but just it's different style. It's a different style, and Creighton has so many different guys that can score the ball. They can all create. They can shoot. Like, so talented players, and Princeton style will make it difficult on them. But I just don't see how they get enough stops. I don't think Princeton's not going to win a high scoring game against Creighton. That I just don't see that happening, and I don't think they can get quite enough stops. Get the score down to where they'd be a little more competitive. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they proved it wrong up to this point, so you can't count them out. But this is going to be a tall task for them.
Yeah, I think that the key to winning this game is getting off to a really solid start, like what they did. Actually, comparing this possible start to the Pitt start against Iowa State, where they completely dominated.
Yeah, just come out dominating defensively especially. Just get a ton of stops to start, consecutive stops, like 3 or 4 stretches where you can get stop.
And I just think that Creighton is the better team in this matchup, and I know anything is possible, but I'm not really having confidence of how well this team is matched up against Creighton, and Creighton can just totally blow the door open with threes from Nebhard to Kaluma, and I just feel like it's not going to be as easy of a task for Princeton, but we will see what happens come Friday. So there's one more game to preview, which is a really interesting matchup. Xavier in Texas, which will be at 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time start on CBS from Kansas City. I know you'll be at that game. So what are your thoughts on that one?
That should be a fantastic game. Texas has been great to end the season. I mean, I've watched them beat Kansas. They blew us out twice. You had some things. I mean, without stuff, that was tough. But Texas has been great. And they survived a tough game against Penn State. Like, Penn State was really good. They didn't make a ton of shots. They battled. They took the lead late in that game even. But Texas stayed with it defensively, and they did enough offensively because Penn State was playing those 5 guard lineups and those it's just tough to prepare for those. We've talked about FDU, that's what they do, but Penn State's been playing similar styles in this, and we've seen it. It gave a ton of teams problems. They almost got Purdue in that Big Ten title game. They almost got Texas. They dominated Texas A&M in the first. So definitely there, but Texas found a way to get that. And they got here. And Xavier as well. They survived a thriller against the 14th Kennesaw State, and then they handled Pitt. Not completely a blowout, but they were in control of that game from the start. I think they looked very good in that performance. So these are two teams who are playing their best basketball at the right time, and definitely, if I would pick Texas. I think Texas they can win a game on either end of the floor. Like to see their shooting has been down a little bit, so can they make enough perimeter shots to win this game? But so Jabari Rice, I think, and big. And I think Hunter and Carr can shoot the ball well enough. But can they hit enough shots? I think they can in this one. But it's more, I trust their defense, and I think they can really create some matchup problems inside the arc as well, from Timmy Allen and Dylan DeSue.
So before we end the episode, I wanted to try something new. It's called the Hoop Fanatics Pick'em, where we'll pick each game for the Sweet 16 and see how it plays out. So I'll go first. I'll do every game from Michigan State game to the Xavier Texas game.
Sweet.
So I'm gonna pick Michigan State to beat Kansas State. And I'm gonna go with UConn over Arkansas, Tennessee over FAU, and UCLA over Gonzaga.
Nice.
For Thursday.
Okay. Sweet. Then you want me to do my Thursdays?
Yeah.
Okay. So my Thursdays, I have Michigan State over Kansas State, UConn over Arkansas, Tennessee over Florida Atlantic. So thanks to there, but I am going to have Gonzaga beating UCLA. Definitely. That's that. We have so many great games the rest of the way. We've seen upsets up till this point. We'll have a ton of great games the rest of the way. But I agree with you the first three, but then I am going to go Gonzaga over UCLA in the night.
So for Friday, I'm going to go with Alabama over San Diego State. I'm going to go with, as much as I want Houston to win this one, I'm not really positive of how their performance has been. So I'm going to go with Miami over Houston. I'm going to go with Princeton over Creighton. I know I'm a big fan of them, and I would love to see them in the Elite Eight. So I'm going to go with them. And I'm going to go with Texas over Xavier.
Sweet. Love it. So, yeah, I also have Bama over San Diego State. I have Miami beating Houston as well. Don't love us both picking against the Cougars because they're arguably the best team in the country, but I think matchup-wise, Miami's a great chance. I'm going to go with Creighton over Princeton, but I'm definitely pulling for Princeton for you guys. That's just such a cool run they're on, and I would love to see this story continue. And then I'm going to go Texas over Xavier as well.
So it should be a full-filled 48 hours starting Thursday at 6:30 until Friday around midnight Eastern time. And I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode of us covering the Sweet 16 matchups and previewing the Elite 8 matchups.
Definitely. It's gonna be a fun week, another fun week of basketball coming up, and
so many
great games.
Can't wait.